So I think there's a lot of good lessons that come from movies all over the world, but this is one of my favorites of all time, Forrest Gump. And I think there's a lot of lessons in how Forrest carries himself that we could all use and apply to our life. So I wanted to talk about six that really stand out to me. So, number one is he's matter of fact, right? So often we overcomplicate things. We play games, we don't double text, whatever it is, we're not going to say what we're thinking. Like, why don't we look at what Forrest does and how that looks out for him, right? He's looking for a seat on the bus, and someone says, "You can sit here if you want." He wants to sit there. That ends up being a life changing decision for him. And then when he goes to college, right? Sees someone drop her book. And he goes and picks it up for her. He goes, "Ma'am, you dropped your book." Now, this is a big deal because this was the first sort of integration away from segregation. But to him, he's just matter of fact. It's just some lady who dropped her book. And he ends up being this really nice moment, and in what could have been very tense. And then, another example, right, is when he gets to the army, he is a standout due to his ability to follow orders, right? This little scene where the drill sergeant's yelling at him and he goes, "Gump, what is your sole purpose in this army?" And he goes, "To do whatever you tell me, drill sergeant." And he goes, "God damn it, Gump, you're a goddamn genius." So these are just some examples where his just sort of matter of factness really serve him, but it's an ongoing theme throughout the movie that I think we could all learn from. Number two, he's willing to receive, right? So often we get stuck in what we want and not necessarily being open to what the universe will give us. And of course, there's the most famous quote. Mom always said life was like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. But also, why does he go to college? He's just running. And then, he goes, "And can you believe it? I got to go to college too," right? Because he gets recruited just because he runs across the football field and the coaches want him to get there. So he makes it on the football team. And so much, again, a recurring theme of his just sort of openness to do things, right? So I did, right? Number three, he finds a way to process his emotions, and we sort of see an evolution of it where earlier in the movie, he punches this guy who puts his hands on Jenny. He really doesn't like it. He hits him, right? And he doesn't like that, though. You can tell he doesn't want to be that sort of angry reactiveness. But then, he just sort of says eventually, "I felt like running," which, is sort of, I would say, interpreted of him processing Bubba dying, his mom dying, Jenny rejecting him, right? He sort of needs to get some space. And so what he does is he just runs across the country, a little extreme for some of us, but he's processing. And then one day he just says, "All right, I think I'm good. I'm done running." And he's let it all out, but he processed this. Number four, he's loyal to a fault, right? When he's in battle and his squadron get hit, Lieutenant Dan doesn't want him to save him, but he saves him, right? He goes, "I didn't want you to pull me out of here. God damn it," right? His daddy and his granddaddy and his daddy's daddy and blah, 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 all died on the battlefield. But Forrest was like, "I'm going to save you, and I got to save you." And even to the point, right, where he goes trying to save every single person, but he's got to find Bubba, right? And he finds Bubba a little too late, but he still went and got him out of there. And then, of course, there's, his loyalty to Jenny, which is unwavering. And of course, the kind of sad fan theory, which is that this baby Forrest actually isn't even his baby, and he just sort of gets bamboozled into parenting Forrest because of how loyal he is to Jenny. But that's neither here nor there. The point is, he is ridiculously loyal to his people, Jenny being one of them. Number five, he has a lot of tremendous luck, and he sort of acknowledges it, right? He talks about how the hurricane that set up the Bubba Gump Shrimp Company was all just because he was out at sea when everyone else's boats got wrecked, and he didn't really see it coming, but they just managed and made it work, right? He talks about how he finds out he owns part of a fruit company, right? And he just says that's how he made early investments in Apple, which obviously worked out well for him, right? But he just sort of doesn't say, "Oh, I'm better than thou," or "I'm so smart." He acknowledges that he had some luck along the way. And then lastly, he shows you can be friends with everyone, but friends with anyone, but you don't need a ton. You don't need to be best friends with everyone, right? Just getting on the bus early on, he goes, "Mama said don't take ride from strangers." And she said, "Well, I'm whatever her name is." And she says, "Well, I'm Forrest Gump. Now we ain't strangers anymore," right? So he wants to be friends. He doesn't want to be strangers. And, but at his wedding, right, who shows up? Lieutenant Dan and really just a handful of people compared to all the characters and people that he interacts with throughout the movie, going to college, being in the army, ping pong, Elvis, right? Look at this. We got like maybe 20 people at this wedding with his love of his life, who he's known for his whole life, right? So, I just think this image is really symbolic of Forrest and the way he shows up, and ultimately, though, that he keeps his circle tight. So, in summary here, we got be matter of fact, we got be open to life, willing to receive, process your emotions, Stay loyal to your people. Um, Acknowledge your blessings. Keep your circle tight, but care for everyone. And I think those are some important lessons that we all could benefit from our main man, Forrest Gump. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe if you like this video.